Welcome your faces back to the channel. Pommy and Oz, new round here. Hit that like button, subscribe, turn the notification bell on. Just do it. And I've got a very popular guest on a second time here. The lovely Loz Dempster now. We get to change the surname. She's a super fan of Brisbane, and she's going to be my companion for the Brisbane preview. How are you doing, Loz?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me again, Pommy. I'm glad that last time went so well. Invited me back at least.
Oh, it was. I had loads of fun last time, and obviously, lots happened in your personal life. You're now a married woman. You're all adult now.
I am. I'm fully grown up, old and married now. But yeah, I think last time we spoke was a couple of weeks before the hens party, and then we got married at the beginning of February, so it was about 6 weeks ago now, and just enjoying married life. Everyone always says to me, they're like, "Oh, how does it feel to be married now?" And I was like, "It feels the exact same. Like I just don't have a wedding to plan anymore." But that was an awesome day. We had the best day ever. So,
well, for those watching, your husband is my online husband, Jim Faz's partner in crime. So if you ever follow Faz and you see him getting into Twitter beef, it's usually Cam who's right alongside him.
Yes, always. Oh my God. Those two are bad. You're all bad influences on each other, but it's good.
Yeah. I'm just the graphic designer, so I don't partake in it. I help.
It was so funny when you made that thing a couple of weeks ago. I thought for a second that Cam had made it, and I was just like, "Who?" I'm like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "Oh no, probably made that." And I'm like, oh, "Okay, that makes sense."
Yeah, well, if Carlton ever leave, it's my fault because I'm the one who portrayed graphics. So apologies, Carlton fans. But we're here to talk about your Brisbane. And on this show, we talk about Brisbane a lot. Genuinely good when it's me. Occasionally, Faz, he doesn't like Brisbane. But it's a tough start this year for you. You were heavily tipped. You've gone out and bought players. The Port game was a massive shock. What was your initial thoughts about the Port game? What went wrong, do you think?
Everything. Like, honestly, everything went wrong. Like, just from the beginning, you could just tell from like the first clearance that it wasn't going to be our day. They wanted it so much more. They just looked so much more hungry, and I'm a very emotional watcher. Like, that has been ingrained in me since I was a kid. I got it from my dad. Like, I've just been brought up to just be such an emotional watcher. And I always say to myself, this game, I'm going to be a lot more calm. I'm just going to let it happen. But I got like 2 minutes in, and I was almost done already. I think I made it to about halfway through like the first quarter, and I already had to just go to the toilet and take a breath because it was just so frustrating to watch, because they had such a big build up and we were so excited. It was the most excited I'd been for a season ever, and I think across the board it was the most excited all of our fans had been for a season, because they had built it up so much. They'd built up, that they'd brought in Dunkley, and we've got all these amazing, like we've brought in Gunston, we've upgraded him from mixed day, like we've filled these holes. The team defense is like a huge thing for the year. We've practiced it all pre-season and everyone's been training the house down, and then they come out and do that and we're like, what's changed? Like, and I know that there's lots of fans, like I think I tweeted about it, like what has changed, and it was an emotional tweet, but everyone was saying like, oh, it's just round one, like you need to calm down. But it's like that sort of round one, like it was the same shit, like all the shit stuff like that we'd previously hated was just all imploded into that one game. So it was extremely disappointing and frustrating, and I'm hoping that it's just gives them the kick up the arse that they need, that they've just got to try a bit harder next time.
It was a weird one, and some of the things you said there resonated with me, with the training the house down. As a Carlton fan over the last 10 years, that line with a disappointing first round is is literally my Carlton experience. Massive hype, round one, horrible, and you're left kind of feeling solemn. But watching that game as a neutral was really hard because, like you say, the first quarter you looked off, but then the second quarter you kind of got the lead, and it felt like even though you were the worst side, you were maybe going to edge it through just skill level and just audacity, really. But then that third quarter, that was hard to watch, even as a neutral. Like, I don't often feel sorry for sides, but everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Every turnover was punished. It was like the AFL gods were really teaching Brisbane a lesson.
Yeah. And I think perhaps too that second quarter, I got to halftime and I was like, how are we, in front? I think we might have been nearly at that time. And I was thinking to myself, I don't really know whether we've actually improved in that quarter because I still didn't think we were playing that well. It's just perhaps that Port's intensity and their pressure, they'd obviously put everything into that first quarter, and it was extremely hot in Adelaide too. So I think perhaps that in that quarter, they'd sort of just died off a little bit, got that break at halftime, and then they just came out with the fury that they had in the first quarter again. And just, like you said, it was just one of those times where nothing went right for us. And I feel like that is the most frustrating, thing to be able to watch, because everything might not be going right for you, but then the effort is just not there. And I just think the one thing when things aren't going right for you and it's not your day, the one thing that you can give is effort. And that's what was so disappointing to watch, is that the effort, in the end, just wasn't there for the entire game. And obviously the third quarter was the worst of it, but I think that was probably the most frustrating part.
And I think what is hard leading up to this game, the Demons, which we're watching on Friday night on the channel, is Melbourne and you are probably the two most talked about clubs in the preseason. Both have gone quite heavy in the trade period, brought in the players that are meant to take you to that next level. And the Demons were incredibly impressive last week, where you guys obviously off the boil. What are your initial thoughts on this game?
Initially, it's fear. If we hadn't have had that semi-final win against us, it would be complete terror. I would just assume that we're probably going to get beaten by 10 goals again. We've obviously got that monkey off our back a bit. But Melbourne, they looked quick again. I think the last half of the season and when we played them in the semi-final, they were really playing really slowly, and we were sort of able to, play quick through the guts, and that's how we like to play. So then we were able to really get the game on our terms. It was a lot easier, but I just think that this time when we play them, it's going to be a lot more difficult to do that, because they seem to be back to their best that they were, in the last half of 2021. And that does frighten me. There is I'm confident that our best can beat them. We have shown that we're able to do that, but there's going to be some very specific ways I think perhaps that we're going to need to do it.
And what are you looking for? Obviously we saw Grundy and
I keep doing that. I keep calling them. They need to just be called Grandy or something, just combine them together, because it's it's too hard to say both their names.
They have joined, but that does look very fearsome. It pulled the doggies apart. We saw systematically the doggies couldn't handle it. What do you think, looking at your list, what are you looking to hurt them though? We know their strengths. What are you looking for from the Brisbane boys this week to really take it to them at the Gabba?
I think the big thing, the Gabba, is going to make a huge difference. We obviously play a lot better there, and the crowd is going to be demanding that, from the second that they step out, that they give it a million times more effort than what they gave last week. Obviously, the ruck combination of Gawn and Grundy is quite an ominous cloud that's hanging over anyone that plays them, and so it's going to be a very big very, very big task for Oscar this week. I found it interesting when the Bulldogs played them last week. I think Lob only went to like one centre bounce or two perhaps, and I feel like that's probably the same thing that we sort of would do with Daniell. Like, we're not gonna really send him into the centre bounce. So I'm not 100% sure whether Darcy Fort plays this week or if that's something that we bring in to try and help Oscar with the ruck combination, because we're going to really need to get that. Like, he's going to need to help out the midfielders, because they're going to need to get first. They're going to need to be first to the ball this time. I think at the Port game, Fags did say that he thought that our mids were first to the ball a lot of the time. It's just that they weren't clean with their possession. And I don't know, maybe it was just because I was so frustrated watching, but I just felt like we weren't first to the ball at all for like the whole game. Perhaps that can happen sometimes, like when you're frustrated and you're watching, you just think that no one's getting near it. But like, that's something that we're definitely going to need to do, because if Jason Horne-Francis can tear us up, then Petrarca and Viney and Oliver are going to obliterate us if like our midfield plays the same way that they did. So yeah, I think Oscar is definitely like going to be up for it this week. So it'd be interesting to see if like where he gets that assistance from. I'm keen to see the team.
It's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? Because like you say, it was a real, like, it's hard to, I find it hard to look at Brisbane and take that game kind of serious, because I think there were so many players way below the standard that you expect, that you kind of dust it off this week as a bad game and it'll get better. But there was some positives for you, I thought. Like, I enjoyed the return of Conor McKenna. He didn't look like he'd missed a beat, and I really enjoyed that signing. And Dunkley wasn't sensational, but he had his moments where you could see why you got him. Do you think he's really going to rise now? He's wanted to move to Brisbane. It's going to be his first game in front of the home crowd. Is that something you're looking at for Dunkley to really stamp himself in that midfield?
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, there was obviously a lot of pressure, like external pressure on all of these players, because they know exactly why they were brought in. And I don't know if perhaps sometimes it's one of those things that like you're trying too hard to like impress and do exactly what you need to do instead of just playing like the way that you know that you can play. So I think that there'll be like you said, last game, pretty much everyone was shit. So hopefully we can just like wipe that slate clean. That's why it's sort of hard to analyze the Port game, because it's like everybody was bad, and that wasn't really how we play. And like, that's why I just keep saying that the effort is going to be, it sounds like a simple thing, but is going to be such like a big thing this week. But McKenna is going to be really big this week too, because Kitty Coleman is obviously out with concussions. So he's going to, need to be playing that halfback role like a lot more because, obviously he's going to be gone. So I think that, both of them, and even Ashcroft, like, first game, just get that out of the way. Like, he showed signs of, with that goal where he like sidestepped the bump, like they showed signs, all of them, like all the debutants, of how well they can play. And I think in front of a home crowd, they will have settled in a little bit. I think that, they'll definitely be out to prove a point and, hopefully rack it up against Melbourne.
Well, the press has talked a lot as well about Cam Rayner being off halfback. Now, I personally don't like it. But what are your thoughts?
Very polarizing. Very polarizing. I've read like a couple of things, and it's been interesting watching a lot of like the Brisbane supporter pages of like what people have been thinking. I listened to Cam himself speak about it, and I found it interesting what he said, because he was saying that it didn't seem like it was a long-term thing. It was more of a role that was perhaps going to make him a better forward and a better mid, I guess, because he was going to be able to understand how he needed to defend a forward. And so then he was going to be able to play that position better. But I just sort of don't, that's what makes me sort of not understand it a little bit. Like, I know he did play defense in his juniors, like I think in under 16s and stuff, that's like where he played. So it is making him a more versatile player. And that's like, we had so many like forwards and mids and things like that. So I don't know, it's hard. He also like doesn't have like a huge tank, so he's not going to be able to play like constant midfield time. But I would like to see him rotated through there a little bit more. And I just think that we missed him like bursting through stoppages and stuff in the forward half. Like, I understand that that's what he's going to be able to do in the back half and be able to get those chains going. But when he does that in the forward half, it changes games. He kicks goals. He like ignites things. Whereas when he's doing it from off half back, he might be starting like a chain, possibly. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's sort of like how I'm thinking that it doesn't really, like, he's a match winner. And I just feel like perhaps he might be not wasted, but he's not going to be able to have those match winning moments. And at the end of last season, I felt like he was having his breakout year in the role that he was playing. So I don't know. I trust that, you know, that they know what they're doing, and I'm interested. Like, he played well, so I don't know. We'll see what happens.
He was one of them players I was super excited when he got Gunston, because I thought he's probably learning off a guy who is one of the best, coming from that high half forward role of making something happen. And from a neutral, I thought this could really get his game another level, because I love Cam. I think he's very underrated as a footballer. And in Victoria, I think everyone's forgotten he was a pick one and forgotten how good he is. And it's a bizarre thing, but I hope it works out for you, because I think he's a very talented footballer.
Yeah. We'll see. I hope so too, because he, like you said, he was number one, and I feel like he was about to, like, you know, really burst out. So we'll see what happens.
And who, when you look at Melbourne, are you looking at? And if you had a magic wand, who would you like to stop? Who's the guy at Melbourne that you're thinking we have to stop him at all costs? He's the guy that scares me.
The guy that 100% scares me is Max Gawn. I feel like he scares everyone, and as he should when you play Melbourne, because he's just like, he has to be their most important player, because how do you match up on Gawn? Like, he's like the hardest matchup in the team. Like, when he floats forward, I just like that just scares me so much, because I just feel like we don't have anyone to match up on him. I don't know if like Oscar goes with him or what, but then Oscar also likes to float forward himself. And I don't know, it's just, that's why I'm not 100% sure whether like bringing in a Darcy Fort, because Darcy Fort did play in the semi-final against them and played well. So I don't know. It's like, it's a scary prospect, the like Gawn and Grundy. It's kind of like terrifying me a little bit. And I'm really interested to see the team that comes out and what the like coaching staff like do about it, because and even like mid-game, you know, if you know it's halftime and he's already kicked 2 goals and he's just like absolutely killing us, like what are we gonna do? Like don't know.
He's one of them tough players, isn't he? Because I find it quite easy to hate opposition players. It's not that hard for me, but Max plays it with such a smile on his face that he's a very likable guy as well. Like, I find myself sometimes watching him against my own club, and you half smile because he's enjoying it so much. And you find it hard to hate him. And I agree with you. He's such an awkward human being as well. Like, he's all arms and legs. It doesn't look like it should work. It does work. Devastating play. And then his mate, Grundy, he was a nightmare to play when he was just on his own. Now there's 2 of them.
Exactly. And like lots of people said that it wouldn't work. And I know that perhaps like against the Doggies, it wasn't like I thought that perhaps that was going to be like that was a good test to see whether the Gordon Grundy worked. And it'd be interesting, I guess, when they play a team that's like got like two ruckmen like that are actually playing, like perhaps like when they play Carlton, if you guys have like a Pitney and a Tom de Koning, like if they both play together, where it's like going to be different. So I'm not 100% sure whether like they look at like whether we look at the Bulldogs game with them only playing against Tim English. English had like 24 or something, and it just, yeah, we'll see. I don't know. It's hard.
It's funny you say that because TDK and Pitner, that's the kind of game that I could see TDK like having 25 touches and kicking 4 goals. It's that freak game for Carlton where TDK will probably destroy the game, and we're like, Jesus,
he's actually amazing.
that is the most Carlton thing. That is the most Carlton thing. But you talked about team selection, Darcy Fort coming in. If you were the coach, I give you the power. What would you change from last week, this week, to try and give you guys the edge?
I find this is so hard because of the game that we had last week. Like, I don't want to jump the gun on all these like young guys like Robertson and Tunstall and Wilmot and things like that, because like they weren't the only ones that didn't play that well. Like, you know, if anyone, those were the ones that were like trying the hardest. So I don't know. It's hard. I know that like Ainsworth and Jared Lyons had a big practice match. Like Jared Lyons was best on ground. So I don't know whether they take any of that into consideration. I think perhaps that like listening to what Fags has said, and also like Harris Andrews and things like that after the game, that it was like an anomaly, that game. Like that wasn't how they play. That wasn't what they want to play like. And so I don't suspect that there's going to be many changes. Zorko is available this week, so I assume he just comes straight in for Coleman because he's out with concussion. But I think that perhaps, the only... I then think about Darcy Fort coming in, but I don't really know who goes out for him. So it's sort of just like one of those things that I think the team will probably stay like quite similar to how it was last week. And hopefully this week they just pull their finger out a bit.
I hope so for you. And before I let you go, what is your prediction at the Gabba? What do you think is going to happen?
What I think and what I want to happen, they might be different, but I'm just going to go with what I definitely want to happen. I think that we'll win. Like I think this week Brisbane is going to show everyone what we actually can do, and like that we have been training the house down, and that we did get the recruits in for a reason. And I understand that it's probably going to take a bit of time to click, obviously, with Gunston and that too, figuring out his patterns and that sort of thing. So I think that we will win. I'm going to say probably by about 13, but that's what I always choose when I'm not 100% sure what you're going to win by. That's just what I always pick.
2 goals, 1. It's nice. I like it. Yeah. I do like it. It's a safe number.
Yeah, that's always my safe number. You know, when you like do your tipping and they have to ask like what the margin's going to be, if I don't know that they're going to get flogged, I always pick 13. So.
Yeah, I think I go 16. I think from somewhere from memory that's like AFL average margin. So
okay, yeah.
I think you cover your bases, but no, I like it. And I hope for your sake we'll be watching this game live. I will be myself. I am hoping we are seeing you happy at the end of the game.
Same, but we often, the last couple of years, we haven't started the season that well. So it might just be might be what we do. We going to pull a Geelong and just come into the end of the year exactly how we need to peak it. We always we don't seem to peak that well at the end of the year. We go up in the middle and then back down again. So I'm hoping this year it's just straight on up.
It's something I am new to experiencing as a Carlton fan, because a lot of us has got us locked in for finals. That is the new excuse now, round 1. It's all about peaking last 4 rounds, boys.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is weird.
Yeah. Go with it, though. Just go with it.
Because I'm planning my holidays usually last 4 weeks of the season. Not worried about that.
Well, that's the only thing with Cam and I is that we did say this towards the end of last year, but it didn't end up happening. But Carlton and Brisbane haven't really ever been this good at the same time together, obviously, when we've been together. So, yeah, the Brisbane Carlton game, I think it's a Carlton home game. And I think I'm going to go sit in my Brisbane Victorian membership section, and he'll go sit in his Carlton section, and we might just like stay apart. So I'm interested to see what happens at the end of the year if we're both there.
That is quite cute. You've been separated, but in the same venue.
Yeah, yeah. I just like don't like. We've always sat together the other games, but it like, yeah, wasn't as big of a deal at that time as it is now. So we'll see.
A lot more stress. Well, Lauren, thank you very much for joining us. Lauren's Twitter handle is in there. She's a good tweeter as well. She's very knowledgeable about the footy, and we can't thank her enough for coming here, because finding Brisbane fans is hard to do at the best of times. So you're our favourite, Lauren. Thank you very much, and we'll have you back on, I'm sure, later in the year. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. See you guys.